Sacred roots, radical fruits, the commandments and the fight for justice, a thread of sacred revolt. Behold, a tapestry woven across the ages, a vibrant, often blood-stained thread stretching from the very dawn of human conscience to the urgent cries of our present hour. From the gilded cages of Pharaoh's court, where the cries of enslaved Israel ascended like a lament to the heavens, to the cold calculus of Wall Street, where unseen algorithms can perpetuate new forms of bondage. From the crushing weight of Babylonian exile, a nation stripped bare and yearning for its soul, to the stark realities of modern border camps, where the image of God in human form often finds itself marginalized and forgotten. A single unwavering voice echoes through this tumultuous history, the insistent demand for justice, not merely a societal preference, but a divine imperative etched into the very fabric of creation. And at its heart, beating with the rhythm of a liberated people, lie the 10 Commandments. These pronouncements from Sinai, delivered amidst fire and cloud, were never intended as a simple codex of conduct, a list of prohibitions to be grudgingly observed. Nay, they were a radical declaration, a spiritual earthquake shaking the foundations of injustice. They were and remain a revolution, a fundamental reordering of human relationships, grounded not in the arbitrary power of the strong, but in the inherent dignity bestowed upon each soul by the Creator. Consider the profound mystery. How did the stark command, "You shall not steal," blossom into the collective yearning, "We shall overcome"? How did the prohibition against bearing false witness ignite the burning desire for truth and transparency in our public discourse? How did the injunction against coveting our neighbor's possessions fuel the struggle for equitable distribution and the dismantling of systemic oppression? The answer, my friends, lies in the sacred root of these commandments. They are not sterile pronouncements, but living seeds imbued with the very Spirit of God, capable of bearing radical fruit in the fertile ground of human hearts. And so we must ask ourselves, with the weight of history and the urgency of the present pressing upon us, what dormant embers of sinus fire still glow within these ancient words? What transformative power lies yet untapped in their profound simplicity? Can these sacred roots, planted millennia ago, still nourish our contemporary quest for equity, for the recognition of inherent human dignity in every face, and for the elusive yet essential promise of true and lasting peace? Let us listen closely, for the echoes of that divine encounter on the mountain still reverberate, calling us to a justice that rolls down like waters, an ever-flowing stream, cleansing the impurities of our world and quenching the thirst of a broken humanity. Moses to Mandela. Within the sacred scriptures, a narrative pulses with a primal energy, a story so potent it has echoed through millennia, shaping the very soul of those who yearn for freedom and cry out against injustice. This is the Exodus, the foundational saga of liberation, the very heartbeat of divine intervention in the face of human oppression. Gustavo Gutierrez, that prophetic voice who gave birth to liberation theology, understood its profound significance, recognizing it not merely as a historical event, but as a revelation of God's very character, what he so eloquently termed God's preferential option for the poor. This is not to say God neglects the wealthy or powerful, but rather that his divine gaze is particularly drawn to those whose dignity is trampled, whose voices are silenced, whose very humanity is denied. In their suffering, God reveals a profound solidarity, a divine commitment to their liberation. For the enslaved Africans dragged across oceans and subjected to the brutal machinery of chattel slavery, the Exodus became more than just a biblical tale. It was a living testament to hope, a coded language of resistance woven into the fabric of their spirituals. Go down, Moses. That haunting melody was not simply a song of lament. It was a strategic whisper of defiance, a shared dream of deliverance, a potent invocation of the God who had once shattered the chains of another enslaved people. Every sung verse was a prayer for their own Red Sea moment, a fervent hope for a Moses to lead them out of the suffocating darkness of bondage. The spiritual became a vessel of faith, carrying the embers of liberation through generations of unimaginable suffering. Across the vast expanse of time and continents, the spirit of the Exodus found a powerful resonance in the heart of a man who would become a beacon of hope for a nation held captive by the insidious ideology of apartheid. Nelson Mandela, unjustly imprisoned for 27 long years, confined to the cold, hard reality of a cell, drew sustenance from this ancient story. He found solace and strength in the unwavering conviction that the God who hears the cry of the oppressed, as it is written in the very book of Exodus 3:7, had not abandoned him nor his people. This divine attentiveness to the suffering of the marginalized became a cornerstone of his own enduring spirit. The Exodus narrative reminded him that even in the deepest darkness, the promise of liberation remained. It fueled his unwavering resolve, transforming his imprisonment not into a symbol of defeat, but into a potent testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the unwavering justice of God. From the dusty plains of ancient Egypt to the blood-soaked soil of the American South, from the Robben Island prison to the dawn of a free South Africa, the Exodus paradigm endures. It stands as a timeless testament to a God who actively intervenes in human history on behalf of the oppressed. It reveals a divine heart that beats in rhythm with the cries of the afflicted. It is a sacred blueprint for liberation, a constant reminder that injustice will not have the final word, that the yearning for freedom is not merely a human desire, but a divinely planted seed that will, in its own time, blossom into the radical fruit of justice. The first commandment: dismantling idols of oppression. The very bedrock of the Sinai covenant, the inaugural decree etched into the tablets of divine law, resonates with a profound and enduring challenge. You shall have no other gods before me. Exodus 20:03. This is far more than a simple prohibition against polytheism. It is a radical call to dismantle the idols that insidiously creep into the human heart and corrupt the very fabric of society. These idols, though they may take on myriad forms throughout history, share a common characteristic. They demand ultimate allegiance, diverting our worship and devotion away from the one true God and towards false promises of security, power, and fulfillment. Consider the seductive allure of greed, the insatiable hunger for material accumulation that elevates wealth above human dignity and transforms the pursuit of profit into a relentless and often ruthless God. This idol demands sacrifices, the exploitation of the vulnerable, the degradation of the environment, the erosion of compassion in the relentless pursuit of more. Or consider the insidious idol of racism, a perverse and dehumanizing construct that elevates one group above another based on the arbitrary and superficial distinctions of skin color or origin. This false god demands the subjugation and suffering of entire communities, blinding its adherents to the inherent beauty and worth of every human soul created in God's image. And then there is the ever-present temptation of empire, the worship of power and dominion that leads nations to trample upon the sovereignty of others, to build their own glory upon the oppression of the weak, forgetting that true strength lies not in domination, but in justice and peace. Throughout the prophetic tradition of Israel, we witness courageous voices rising up to confront these very idols. Elijah's dramatic confrontation with the priests of Baal on Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18:27, was not merely a theological debate. It was a powerful act of holy satire, a searing indictment of corrupt power that had led the people astray. With biting sarcasm, Elijah mocked the impotence of their false god, exposing the emptiness of their devotion and calling the people back to the living God who truly delivers. His words and actions serve as a timeless model for how faith can and should challenge the idols that hold societies captive. In our own time, the prophetic spirit finds new voices and new battlegrounds. The passionate cries of today's climate activists echo the ancient prophets, recognizing the idolatry inherent in a relentless pursuit of economic growth that disregards the sacredness of creation. Their urgent plea, "Stop worshiping profit, the earth is the Lord's," is a powerful articulation of the first commandment in a contemporary context. They challenge the idol of unchecked industrialization that sacrifices the delicate balance of our planet for short-term gain, reminding us that the earth is not merely a resource to be exploited, but a sacred trust belonging to God and to future generations. The first commandment, therefore, is not a relic of a distant past. It is a living, breathing call to ongoing vigilance, a constant invitation to examine the idols that subtly or overtly shape our lives and our societies. It demands that we tear down these false gods, whether they are enshrined in our economic systems, our social structures, or the hidden corners of our own hearts, and to reorient our allegiance to the one true God, whose very nature is love, justice, and the liberation of all. Jubilee and modern debt forgiveness. At the heart of a just society lies a fundamental respect for the dignity and the material well-being of each individual. The eighth commandment, that seemingly simple yet profoundly radical injunction, "You shall not steal," extends far beyond the prohibition of petty theft. It strikes at the very root of systemic injustice, demanding a moral architecture for our economic lives. Within the ancient wisdom of the Hebrew Scriptures, this commandment bore a truly revolutionary fruit. The concept of Jubilee, a divinely ordained reset button for the ever-present tendency towards inequality, Leviticus 25, this was not merely a suggestion, but a sacred mandate. Every 50th year, a radical act of social and economic healing. Debts were to be forgiven, the enslaved were to be set free, and ancestral lands were to be restored, ensuring that the accumulation of wealth and the burden of poverty would not become permanent and insurmountable realities. Jubilee was a testament to a God who wills not only individual righteousness, but also a just and equitable community. Across the millennia, the spirit of Jubilee continues to resonate, a prophetic echo in the face of modern economic disparities. Consider the crushing weight of medical debt in our contemporary world. Statistics reveal a stark and sobering truth. A staggering percentage of personal bankruptcies in affluent nations stem not from frivolous spending, but from the desperate struggle to afford essential health care. This reality stands as a stark indictment of systems that prioritize profit over people, leaving individuals and families teetering on the brink of financial ruin due to circumstances beyond their control. Illness, accident, the fragility of human existence itself. Pope Francis, with his characteristic moral clarity, has not hesitated to condemn such realities as a form of economic side. Fratelli Tutti 21. A systemic killing of human potential and dignity through the relentless machinery of economic injustice. He recognizes that allowing financial burdens to crush the vulnerable is a profound violation of the spirit, if not the letter, of the Eighth Commandment. In response to these modern-day forms of economic oppression, echoes of the Jubilee tradition are rising. Grassroots movements and organizations, often bearing names like the Jubilee Debt Campaign, are fighting to break the chains of injustice. Isaiah 58:6. Echoing the ancient call to release the oppressed and unshackle the burden, their work in advocating for debt forgiveness, particularly for the most vulnerable, is a tangible manifestation of the enduring power of the Eighth Commandment. They understand that true justice requires not only the absence of overt theft, but also the proactive dismantling of systems that perpetuate economic bondage. The Eighth Commandment, therefore, compels us to look beyond individual acts of stealing and to examine the broader structures that either facilitate or impede economic justice. It calls us to cultivate a moral imagination that can envision and enact modern-day jubilees, policies and practices that offer pathways to economic healing, that prioritize human dignity over unchecked accumulation, and that recognize our shared responsibility for the well-being of all. The sacred root of Do Not Steal continues to bear the radical fruit of movements striving for a world where the burden of debt does not crush the human spirit, and where the promise of economic flourishing is not a distant dream, but a tangible reality for all God's children. Fair wages, a prophetic mandate. The Eighth Commandment, "You shall not steal," reverberates through the corridors of economic interaction, its moral imperative extending far beyond the blatant act of theft. It speaks with profound force to the very structures of exchange, demanding fairness not only in what we take, but also in what we give, particularly in the realm of human labor. The sacred scriptures themselves erupt with righteous indignation when the dignity of the worker is violated through unjust compensation. The letter of James 5-4 thaws with prophetic fury. "Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty." These are not mere words of admonition. They are a divine outcry, a testament to God's unwavering concern for the well-being of those who toil and labor. The exploitation of human effort, the withholding of a just reward for honest work, is presented not just as an economic injustice, but as a profound spiritual offense, a sin that cries out to the very heavens. Centuries later, the great theologian Thomas Aquinas, in his profound wisdom, echoed this ancient understanding when he articulated the concept of a just wage. Summa Theologiae 277. Aquinas, drawing deeply from the wellspring of biblical revelation and human reason, argued that a fair wage is not simply a matter of market forces or arbitrary negotiation. Rather, it is a moral imperative, a requirement rooted in the inherent dignity of the human person and the necessity of providing for oneself and one's family. In his articulation, we hear echoes of the Exodus narrative, a rejection of the exploitative economic system of Pharaoh's Egypt, where the labor of the enslaved was extracted without just recompense, a system built upon the dehumanization of an entire people. Aquinas recognized that to deny a worker a just wage is to, in essence, perpetuate a form of economic enslavement, stripping them of their ability to live with dignity and participate fully in the life of the community. In our contemporary world, The struggle for fair wages continues to be a critical battleground in the fight for economic justice. The Fight for $15 movement and the broader campaigns for a living wage are not merely about economic policy. They represent modern-day exoduses. These are not simply demands for more money. They are profound assertions of human dignity, a recognition that those who work full-time should not be forced to live in poverty, struggling to meet basic needs like food, shelter, and health care. These movements are a contemporary manifestation of the prophetic mandate to ensure that the laborer is worthy of his hire, Luke 10:7, a fundamental principle that transcends temporal economic theories and speaks to the very heart of human value. The pursuit of fair wages is not just about individual economic security. It has profound spiritual and societal implications. When workers are justly compensated, they are empowered to participate more fully in their communities, to invest in their families, and to contribute their talents and energies to the common good. Fair wages foster a sense of dignity and self-worth, recognizing the inherent value of human labor as a participation in God's own creative work. Conversely, the denial of fair wages breeds resentment, despair, and social unrest, fracturing the bonds of community and undermining the common good. Therefore, the call for fair wages is not merely a political or economic issue. It is a deeply theological and spiritual one. It is a contemporary echo of the ancient cry for justice, a demand that we build economic systems that reflect the inherent dignity of every worker, recognizing their labor not as a mere commodity, but as a vital contribution deserving of just and equitable reward. In striving for fair wages, we are not just seeking economic reform, we are participating in the ongoing work of liberation, building a society that more closely reflects the justice and compassion of God, abolition, and the sanctity of life. At the very heart of the moral law, etched with an unyielding clarity, lies the sixth commandment: "You shall not murder," Exodus 20:13. This seemingly straightforward prohibition against the direct taking of a human life possesses an expansive and ever-widening circle of moral implication. It is not merely a decree against a singular act of violence, but a foundational principle that undergirds the sanctity of all human life, challenging any system or ideology that diminishes, dehumanizes, or systematically devalues the precious gift of existence bestowed by the Creator. Consider the profound spiritual journey of John Newton, a man who once profited from the abhorrent trade in human beings, a commerce built upon the brutal commodification and systematic violation of God's image in His children. His conversion, marked by the composition of Amazing Grace, stands as a powerful testament to the transformative power of recognizing the inherent dignity of those he had once considered mere cargo. His awakening to the profound moral horror of slavery was, at its core, a recognition that this brutal institution was a protracted and systemic form of murder, a mass murder by slow torture, as the great abolitionist William Wilberforce would later eloquently articulate. Wilberforce, fueled by a deep Christian conviction, understood that the enslavement of another human being was not simply an economic or social injustice, but a fundamental assault on their very being, a denial of their God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of their divinely intended purpose. His tireless efforts to dismantle the slave trade were rooted in this profound understanding of the Sixth Commandment's radical implications. Centuries later, in the struggle for civil rights in America, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. echoed this profound connection between systemic injustice and the violation of the sanctity of life. He recognized that segregation, with its insidious mechanisms of dehumanization, its denial of equal opportunity, and its perpetuation of violence and fear, was a form of spiritual homicide. It suffocated the spirit, crushed the potential, and systematically denied a segment of humanity their full participation in the life of the nation, effectively killing their dreams and their sense of belonging. His nonviolent resistance was not merely a political strategy, it was a deeply spiritual and moral imperative, a courageous affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, a living embodiment of the Sixth Commandment's demand for the protection of all life. Today, the Black Lives Matter movement rises as a contemporary iteration of this enduring struggle for the recognition of inherent human dignity. In the face of systemic racism and the disproportionate violence inflicted upon Black communities, their powerful assertion, "Every life is sacred, every breath divine," resonates with the timeless truth of the Sixth Commandment. It is a potent reminder that the sanctity of life is not a selective principle applied only to certain segments of society, but a universal truth that encompasses every human being, regardless of race, ethnicity, or social standing. Their vigils, their protests, their unwavering demands for justice are a modern-day echo of the Imago Dei, the image of God in every human soul. They challenge us to confront the insidious ways in which systemic injustices can lead to the premature ending of lives, not just through direct acts of violence, but through the denial of opportunity, the perpetuation of inequality, and the creation of environments where certain lives are deemed less valuable than others. The Sixth Commandment, therefore, calls us to an ever-expanding understanding of the sanctity of life. It compels us to move beyond a narrow definition of murder and to confront all forms of violence, both direct and indirect, that diminish human dignity and threaten human flourishing. It challenges us to dismantle the idols of prejudice and discrimination that lead us to devalue the lives of our neighbors. It calls us to build societies where every life is not only protected from direct harm, but is also nurtured, valued, and afforded the opportunity to reach its full potential. For in the eyes of God, every life is indeed sacred, and every breath a divine gift, deserving of our utmost respect and unwavering protection. Me too bear true witness. The tapestry of divine law, woven with threads of justice and compassion, reveals a profound interconnectedness between its various strands. The Sixth Commandment, "You shall not murder," with its ever-widening embrace of the sanctity of human life, finds a crucial complement in the Ninth Commandment, "You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor." Exodus 20:16. This seemingly straightforward injunction against lying and perjury extends far beyond the confines of a courtroom. It speaks to the very foundation of trust within human community, demanding a commitment to truth-telling even when the shadows of power and the weight of societal pressure conspire to silence the vulnerable and protect the powerful. For to bear false witness is not merely to distort facts, it is to inflict a profound form of violence upon the truth itself, and in doing so, to wound the dignity and well-being of our neighbor. It is to participate in a subtle yet devastating form of spiritual and emotional assault. The Me Too movement, a seismic awakening that has reverberated across the globe, stands as a powerful contemporary manifestation of the enduring relevance of the Ninth Commandment. It is a collective uprising of voices, long silenced by fear and shame, courageously bearing witness to the pervasive reality of sexual harassment and assault. In its essence, Me Too echoes the prophetic confrontation of Nathan with King David, 2 Samuel 12:7, a courageous act of truth-telling that exposed the abuse of power and the devastating consequences of unchecked privilege. Just as Nathan held a powerful king accountable for his transgression, the Me Too movement has held individuals in positions of authority in industries ranging from entertainment and media to politics and the workplace accountable for their actions, shattering the silence that had long protected them. It has laid bare the devastating impact of lies, both explicit and implicit, that have enabled and perpetuated a culture of abuse for far too long. The lies that silence victims, the lies that protect perpetrators, the systemic lies that deny the prevalence and severity of sexual violence, all are a profound violation of the 9th commandment. The gospel account of the woman caught in adultery, John 8:1-11, offers a powerful theological lens through which to understand the complexities of justice, truth, and restoration in the context of the Me Too movement. The woman, caught in a vulnerable and compromising situation, is dragged before Jesus by her accusers, who demand her stoning according to the prevailing law. Theirs is a rigid and unforgiving application of justice, devoid of compassion and blind to their own potential for sin. Jesus' response, his enigmatic act of writing in the dust, and his subsequent challenge, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her," cuts through the hypocrisy and exposes the judgmental spirit that often underlies the demand for retribution. His words remind us that true justice must always be tempered with mercy, that the aim should be restoration and healing, not simply punishment and destruction. The Me Too movement, while undeniably focused on exposing the truth of past harms and holding perpetrators accountable, also carries within it the potential for profound restoration. By breaking the silence and giving voice to survivors, it begins the arduous process of healing for individuals and for the wider community. It challenges the societal structures and power dynamics that have allowed abuse to flourish, paving the way for a culture of greater respect, accountability, and safety. However, the wisdom of Christ's encounter with the adulteress serves as a crucial reminder that the pursuit of justice must not devolve into a new form of stoning. It must be guided by a spirit of compassion, seeking not merely to punish, but to create pathways for genuine repentance, reconciliation, and the rebuilding of trust. Bearing true witness as demanded by the 9th commandment is not always easy. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, both individually and collectively. For survivors of sexual harassment and assault, speaking out often involves reliving traumatic experiences and facing potential backlash, disbelief, and further victimization. For those in positions of power, it requires a willingness to listen, to acknowledge wrongdoing, and to take concrete steps towards creating safer and more equitable environments. For society as a whole, it demands a critical examination of the cultural norms, implicit biases, and systemic inequalities that have contributed to the prevalence of abuse. The spiritual and theological significance of the Me Too movement lies in its profound connection to the fundamental dignity of the human person. Sexual violence in all its forms is a grave violation of this dignity, treating individuals as objects to be used and abused, stripping them of their autonomy and their sense of self-worth. By bearing true witness to these experiences, survivors are reclaiming their voices, asserting their inherent value, and demanding to be seen and heard. In doing so, they are not only seeking justice for themselves, but are also working to create a world where such violations are no longer tolerated. The 9th commandment calls us to be agents of truth, to dismantle the lies that perpetuate injustice, and to create a culture where the voices of the marginalized and the vulnerable are not silenced but amplified. It reminds us that true justice is not simply about legal proceedings and punitive measures. It is about creating a society built on trust, respect, and the unwavering recognition of the inherent dignity of every human being. The Me Too movement, in its courageous act of bearing true witness, serves as a powerful reminder that the pursuit of justice is an ongoing spiritual and moral imperative, a collective responsibility to speak truth to power, and to work towards a world where the sacred dignity of every individual is honored and protected. Creation care, the first commission. The 10 Commandments, those foundational pillars of ethical living, resonate far beyond the realm of interpersonal relationships. They speak not only to how we are to treat one another, but also to our fundamental relationship with the created order itself. The fourth commandment, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, Exodus 28, often understood as a call to rest and spiritual renewal, holds within its ancient wisdom a profound and often overlooked dimension, a mandate for ecological reverence, a call to recognize and respect the intrinsic rhythms and sacredness of creation itself. The Sabbath, a divinely ordained pause in the cycle of human activity, is not merely about ceasing our labor. It is an invitation to contemplate the beauty, the fragility, and the inherent value of the world around us, a world brought into being by the loving hand of God. It is a weekly reminder that we are not the sole actors in this grand cosmic drama, but rather participants within a larger, divinely orchestrated symphony of life. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si' SS2, a powerful and urgent call for ecological conversion, eloquently articulates this profound connection, declaring with prophetic clarity, "The earth, our home, is beginning to look more and more like an immense pile of filth." He reminds us that our relationship with creation has become tragically distorted, marked by a relentless drive for exploitation and a profound disregard for the delicate balance of the natural world. Yet, he also offers a vision rooted in the very heart of our faith. The earth is essentially a shared inheritance, whose fruits are meant to benefit everyone. For believers, this becomes a question of fidelity to the Creator, since God created the world for everyone one and has reserved it for us so that we might care for it. The earth, therefore, is not merely a resource to be plundered for short-term gain, but a sacred gift entrusted to our care, a testament to God's boundless love and creative power, demanding our reverence and responsible stewardship. This mandate for ecological care finds its very genesis in the opening chapters of the book of Genesis, in the very first commission given to humankind. After creating Adam and Eve, God placed them in the Garden of Eden, not as detached observers or entitled owners, but with the specific instruction to till it and keep it, Genesis 2:15. The Hebrew words avad, to till or serve, and shamar, to keep, guard, or preserve, are deeply significant. They speak not of domination and exploitation, but of a relationship of responsible stewardship, of tending to the garden with diligence and protecting its flourishing life. Humanity was appointed as the guardian of creation, entrusted with the sacred task of ensuring its well-being for present and future generations. This first commission establishes a fundamental theological truth. Care for creation is not an optional add-on to our faith, but an integral dimension of our very being as those created in God's image, tasked with reflecting His loving care for all that He has made. Throughout history and in our contemporary world, indigenous communities around the globe have often embodied this sacred mandate with a profound wisdom and deep spiritual connection to the land. Their ancestral knowledge, passed down through generations, reflects an understanding of the intricate web of life and the delicate balance of ecosystems. When they defend their ancestral lands against the destructive forces of deforestation, mining, and pollution, they are not merely engaging in political activism. They are fulfilling this ancient mandate to till and keep the garden. Their resistance is often rooted in a profound spiritual understanding of the land and water as sacred, as integral to their cultural identity and their relationship with the Creator. They recognize themselves as part of the ecosystem, not as separate from or superior to it. And their fight to protect the earth is often a deeply spiritual struggle to preserve the very sources of life and meaning. The urgent cries of young activists like Greta Thunberg resonate with this ancient wisdom and the prophetic call of Laudato Si. Her unwavering commitment to raising awareness about the climate crisis is a powerful reminder of the consequences of our failure to heed the fourth commandment in its ecological dimension and the first commission in Genesis. Her stark warnings about the future of our planet are a modern-day echo of the prophets of old, calling us to repentance and a radical shift in our relationship with the earth. She challenges the dominant paradigm of endless consumption and economic growth at the expense of the environment, urging us to recognize the intrinsic value of creation and our moral obligation to protect it for future generations. The concept of Sabbath, therefore, extends beyond a weekly day of rest for humanity. It invites us to recognize a Sabbath for the earth itself, a need for the land to be respected, replenished, and allowed to flourish without relentless exploitation. Just as we need to pause from our labors to renew our bodies and spirits, so too does the earth require our restraint, our conscious decision to step back and allow its natural rhythms to continue. To disregard this ecological Sabbath is to disrupt the delicate harmony of creation, to sow the seeds of environmental degradation, and ultimately to jeopardize our own well-being. In embracing ecological justice as an integral dimension of our faith, we are not simply adopting a trendy cause. We are returning to the very roots of our relationship with God and with the world He has created. We are acknowledging that the earth is not ours to own and exploit, but a precious gift entrusted to our care. We are recognizing that the well-being of humanity is inextricably linked to the well-being of the planet, and that true justice must encompass not only our relationships with one another, but also our relationship with all of creation. To remember the Sabbath in its fullest sense is to embrace a spirituality of stewardship, a commitment to tilling and keeping the garden with love, respect, and a profound sense of responsibility, ensuring that the radical fruits of justice blossom not only in our human communities, but also in the flourishing of the earth itself, for the glory of God and the well-being of all creation. Climate repentance, a new covenant, the final commandment of the Decalogue. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's, Exodus 20:17, often interpreted as a prohibition against envy and the desire for what belongs to another, possesses a profound and increasingly urgent ecological dimension. When we extend our gaze beyond the interpersonal and consider the vast resources of our planet, the insatiable human appetite for consumption, fueled by a relentless desire for more and more, reveals itself as a collective form of covetousness on a planetary scale. Our addiction to fossil fuels the very engine of modern industrial society, can be seen as a manifestation of this unchecked desire, a coveting of the earth's ancient reserves, extracted and burned with little regard for the long-term consequences for our shared home and the well-being of future generations. This relentless pursuit of energy, often driven by a desire for ever-increasing material comfort and economic growth, has led us to a precipice, threatening the delicate balance of the Earth's climate and jeopardizing the very conditions that sustain life. In the face of this ecological crisis, a new generation of prophets has arisen, sounding the alarm and calling for a radical shift in our thinking and our actions. Climate activists, often young and deeply committed, can be seen as modern-day Noahs, recognizing the gathering storm and striving to build arcs of sustainability. Innovative solutions, renewable energy technologies, and fundamental changes in our lifestyles and consumption patterns to safeguard life for the future. They understand that the current trajectory is unsustainable, that our relentless coveting of the Earth's resources is leading us towards a global catastrophe. Their passionate advocacy, their peaceful protests, and their unwavering commitment to a more just and sustainable future are a powerful testament to the human capacity for hope and resilience in the face of overwhelming challenges. The wisdom of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, a profound voice of moral and spiritual insight, offers a crucial perspective on our responsibility to future generations. He wisely cautioned, "We are the guests of future generations. Act accordingly." This simple yet profound statement encapsulates the ethical imperative that should guide our relationship with the planet. We have inherited this earth not as owners with the right to exploit it as we see fit, but as temporary stewards entrusted with its care for those who will come after us. Our actions today will have profound and lasting consequences for the generations to come, shaping the world they will inhabit, the resources they will have access to, and the very stability of the climate that will sustain them. To act with disregard for their future is not only short-sighted but also a profound moral failing, a violation of the implicit covenant we have with those who will inherit this earth from us. The call to climate repentance is not merely a political or scientific imperative, it is a deeply spiritual and theological one. It requires a fundamental change of heart, a turning away from the idolatry of endless consumption, and a recognition of the intrinsic value of creation. It demands that we acknowledge our complicity in the degradation of the environment and take responsibility for the consequences of our actions. This repentance involves a willingness to make sacrifices, to embrace more sustainable ways of living, and to advocate for systemic changes that will protect the planet for future generations. It is a call to conversion, a transformation of our relationship with the earth from one of exploitation to one of stewardship and reverence. This moment of ecological crisis can also be seen as an opportunity for a new covenant, a renewed commitment to living in harmony with creation, recognizing our interconnectedness with all living things, and embracing our role as responsible caretakers of God's handiwork. This new covenant requires us to move beyond a purely anthropocentric worldview and to recognize the inherent value and dignity of the natural world. It calls us to listen to the wisdom of indigenous communities who have long understood the sacredness of the land and the importance of living in balance with nature. It demands that we embrace scientific innovation and technological advancements that can help us transition to a more sustainable future. The transition from a fossil fuel-based economy to one powered by renewable energy sources, symbolized by solar farms rising over old coal towns and wind turbines gracing the landscape, represents a tangible step towards this new covenant. It is a sign of hope, a demonstration that a different future is possible, one where human progress is not achieved at the expense of the planet. Reforestation projects, the healing of damaged ecosystems, and the growing movement towards sustainable agriculture are all further expressions of this commitment to renewal and restoration. These are not just technological or economic shifts. They are acts of faith, tangible expressions of our willingness to repent and to forge a new relationship with the earth. The Decalogue, therefore, speaks with profound relevance to the ecological challenges of our time. The commandment against coveting calls us to examine our insatiable desires and their impact on the planet. The call to Sabbath invites us to respect the rhythms of creation and to allow the earth to heal. The overarching spirit of justice that permeates all the commandments demands that we act with responsibility and compassion towards future generations, ensuring that they inherit a planet capable of sustaining life. In this critical moment, we are called to embrace a spirituality of ecological stewardship, recognizing that caring for creation is not an optional extra, but an integral dimension of our faith and our moral responsibility. We are invited to become modern-day Noahs, building arcs of sustainability through our individual choices and our collective action. We are urged to heed the wisdom of Rabbi Sacks and to act as responsible guests of future generations. This is not just about saving the planet. It is about saving ourselves, about rediscovering our place within the intricate web of life, and about honoring the Creator by caring for the magnificent and precious gift of creation that has been entrusted to our care. The path of climate repentance is the path towards a new covenant, a renewed commitment to living in harmony with the earth and ensuring a flourishing future for all. Immigration, loving the stranger. The narrative arc of salvation history is punctuated by a recurring motif, a persistent call that resonates with profound theological significance, the imperative to care for the stranger, the alien, the one who dwells among us but is not of us. The Hebrew Scriptures, in their enduring wisdom, mention the stranger no fewer than 52 times, each instance imbued with a consistent and unwavering message. Extend protection, offer hospitality, remember their vulnerability, for in their journey we encounter a reflection of our own. The command to love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19:18, a cornerstone of ethical living, finds a powerful and specific application in the subsequent verse. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Leviticus 19:33-34. This is not merely a suggestion of common decency, it is a divine mandate rooted in the shared human experience of displacement and the profound recognition that we were all at some point strangers in a foreign land, dependent upon the mercy and hospitality of others, and ultimately upon the boundless grace of God. The history of the people of Israel is inextricably linked to the experience of migration. From Abraham's journey from Ur to the Exodus from Egypt, the narrative is one of wandering, of seeking refuge, of being strangers in a land not their own. Deuteronomy 10:19 serves as a powerful reminder of this foundational truth. You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This historical memory is not intended as a mere recounting of past events. It is a theological touchstone, a constant call to empathy and solidarity with those who find themselves in similar circumstances. The experience of oppression and displacement becomes a wellspring of compassion, a divine invitation to extend to others the very grace and welcome that God extended to them. Throughout the centuries, this biblical imperative to love the stranger has found tangible expression in the lives and actions of individuals and communities who have sought to embody the love of Christ in concrete ways. The Catholic Worker Movement, founded by Dorothy Day and Peter Marin, stands as a powerful example of this lived theology. Their houses of hospitality, offering shelter, food, and community to the marginalized and the displaced, are a modern-day embodiment of Leviticus 19:34, a radical commitment to loving the foreigner as oneself. Similarly, the emergence of sanctuary cities, communities that offer refuge and protection to undocumented immigrants, reflects this deep-seated moral and spiritual conviction that human dignity transcends political boundaries and legal status. These are not merely acts of social activism, they are profound expressions of faith in action, rooted in the understanding that every human being is created in the image of God and deserving of compassion and care. Conversely, when nations and societies criminalize refugees, when they erect walls, both physical and metaphorical, and turn away those seeking safety and asylum, they stand in direct contradiction to this enduring biblical call. The act of demonizing and dehumanizing those who are forced to flee their homes due to violence, persecution, or environmental catastrophe is a profound violation of the spirit of the law, a turning away from the very God who himself led his people out of bondage. Furthermore, the theological implications extend even to the fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother, Exodus 20:12. While often interpreted in the context of familial relationships, this commandment can be understood in a broader spiritual sense. We are all children of God, our ultimate parent. Moreover, humanity itself has been shaped by the great migrations of history. Every nation, every culture is a tapestry woven from the threads of those who have journeyed and settled in new lands. To deny the humanity and the inherent worth of the immigrant, the refugee, is to deny a fundamental aspect of our shared human story. To forget that we are all, in a profound sense, children of a migrant God. A God who moved throughout history to be in relationship with his people. A God whose love knows no borders. To welcome the stranger is not simply an act of charity, it is an encounter with the divine. In the faces of those who are displaced and vulnerable, we often glimpse a profound reflection of Christ himself, who was born into poverty, fled as a refugee to Egypt, and identified himself with the marginalized and the outcast. Matthew 25:35. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. These words of Jesus challenge us to see beyond the labels and the legal categories and to recognize the inherent dignity and the sacred humanity of every person who crosses our path, especially those who are most in need of our compassion and welcome. The commandments, therefore, are not merely a set of prohibitions. They are a blueprint for building the beloved community, a society characterized by justice, compassion, and radical hospitality. The call to love the stranger is not an optional addendum to this blueprint. It is an essential foundation. When we embrace the stranger, we are not only fulfilling a divine mandate, but also enriching our own communities, drawing upon the diverse gifts, talents, and perspectives that newcomers bring. We are building bridges of understanding and breaking down the walls of prejudice and fear that divide us. The journey of the immigrant and the refugee often involves immense hardship, loss, and uncertainty. To respond with hostility or indifference is to compound their suffering and to betray our own deepest values. To respond with love and welcome is to offer a beacon of hope, to embody the compassion of Christ, and to participate in the ongoing work of redemption. It is to recognize that in welcoming the stranger, we are welcoming Christ Himself, and in doing so, we are drawing closer to the heart of God's love for all humanity. The commandments, in their wisdom, remind us that our own security and well-being are inextricably linked to the well-being of our neighbor, including the stranger in our midst. For in the eyes of God there are no strangers. There are only beloved children, each deserving of dignity, respect, and a place to call home. LGBTQ dignity. Expanding the circle. The very heart of the gospel message. The radical and transformative love embodied by Jesus Christ compels us to continually expand our understanding of community, to dismantle the barriers that divide us, and to embrace the fullness of human dignity in all its diverse expressions. Christ's invitation, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," Matthew 11:28, is a boundless embrace, extending to the margins, reaching out to those who have been excluded, judged, and made to feel unwelcome. It challenges us to look beyond the often rigid interpretations of ancient laws and to discern the underlying spirit of love and justice that animates the entire Decalogue. The seemingly restrictive do-nots of the commandments, when viewed through the lens of Christ's inclusive love, transform into profound do-loves, calls to active compassion, to radical empathy, and to the unwavering affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every single human being, without exception. The relationship between David and Jonathan, recounted in the first book of Samuel, 18:1-4, offers a poignant, albeit complex, glimpse into a deep and abiding love that defied the conventional norms of their time. Their bond, described as one where the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul, speaks of a profound connection that transcended societal expectations of friendship and loyalty. While interpretations of their relationship vary, the text undeniably portrays a love marked by deep affection, mutual respect, and unwavering commitment. It serves as a reminder that the human capacity for love and connection can manifest in diverse and deeply meaningful ways, often challenging the prevailing social constructs and demanding a broader understanding of intimacy and devotion. The vibrant and diverse tapestry of pride parades around the world stands as a powerful contemporary affirmation of the inherent dignity and the fundamental right to love and belonging for LGBTQ+ individuals. These are not merely celebrations. They are profound acts of visibility, resilience, and a courageous claiming of space in a world that has often sought to marginalize and silence them. The joy, the solidarity, and the defiant spirit that permeate these gatherings are a testament to the enduring human need for love, acceptance, and the freedom to live authentically. They are a collective yes to the inherent worth of every person, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity, echoing the fundamental truth that every human being is created in the image and likeness of God and is deserving of love and respect. The growing movement within various faith traditions to embrace and celebrate LGBTQ+ love, symbolized by pastors and clergy performing same-sex weddings, represents a significant step towards a more inclusive and compassionate understanding of the gospel message. These acts of affirmation are rooted in a deep theological conviction that God's love is boundless and extends to all of creation, that the call to love our neighbor as ourselves encompasses all members of our human family. They are a tangible expression of the belief that love in its myriad forms is a sacred gift, and that committed, loving relationships between same-sex couples are worthy of blessing and recognition within the faith community. This evolving understanding reflects a deeper engagement with Scripture and tradition, seeking to discern the underlying principles of love, justice, and compassion that should guide our interactions with one another. The wisdom of St. Augustine, encapsulated in his powerful maxim, "Love and do what you will," offers a crucial framework for navigating complex ethical and theological questions, including the inclusion and affirmation of LGBTQ+ individuals. However, Augustine's profound statement is often misconstrued as a license for unbridled freedom. In its true context, it is a call to cultivate a heart so deeply rooted in love, a love aligned with divine justice and compassion, that our actions will naturally flow from that wellspring of virtue. It is not a dismissal of moral principles, but rather a call to internalize them so profoundly that love becomes the guiding principle of all our decisions and interaction. When we approach the question of LGBTQ+ dignity with a genuine love that seeks understanding, embraces compassion, and affirms inherent worth, we begin to see beyond simplistic interpretations and to discern the deeper call to build a community where all are welcomed and valued. The journey towards full inclusion and affirmation of LGBTQ+ individuals within faith communities and wider society requires a willingness to engage in honest dialogue, to listen to the lived experiences of those who have been marginalized. It demands a commitment to studying Scripture and tradition with fresh eyes, seeking to understand the historical and cultural contexts while remaining open to the evolving understanding of human identity and relationships. It necessitates a recognition that the pursuit of justice and the embrace of love are not mutually exclusive, but are, in fact, deeply intertwined. The Decalogue, as a covenant between God and humanity, calls us to build a community grounded in justice and love. To exclude or diminish the dignity of any member of our human family, including our LGBTQ+ siblings, is to fracture that covenant, to deny the universality of God's love, and to fall short of the radical inclusivity that Christ embodied. Expanding the circle of love and acceptance is not a betrayal of our faith, it is a deepening of it, a more profound embrace of the boundless love of God that knows no boundaries and leaves no one behind. Ultimately, the question of LGBTQ+ dignity is a question of recognizing the inherent worth and value of every human being, created in God's image and deserving of love, respect, and the full embrace of community. It is a call to move beyond fear and prejudice and to cultivate a love that reflects the radical inclusivity of Christ Himself, who welcomed all to His table, who healed the outcast, and who challenged the rigid social norms of His time with a love that transformed the world. As we strive to build the beloved community, may we be guided by this expansive love, a love that breaks down walls, celebrates diversity, and affirms the sacred dignity of every single soul. The unfinished symphony, the 10 Commandments, those ancient pronouncements etched in stone and seared into the human conscience, are not relics of a bygone era, dusty artifacts to be admired from a distance. They are, rather, a living inheritance, a sacred trust passed down through generations, a dynamic call to action that continues to resonate with urgent relevance in our contemporary world. They are not a static set of rules, but the enduring score for an unfinished symphony of justice. A melody begun on the slopes of Sinai and still being composed in the hearts and hands of those who yearn for a more humane and equitable world. From the towering figure of Moses, leading a people out of the shackles of slavery, to the unwavering resolve of Nelson Mandela, emerging from decades of unjust imprisonment to lead his nation towards freedom. From the quiet courage of Ruth, a stranger who chose solidarity and loyalty, to the impassioned voice of Greta Thunberg, challenging the world to confront the climate crisis. The baton of justice is continually being passed. Each generation receives this sacred inheritance, adding their own voice, their own actions, their own stones to the ever-growing cairn of righteousness. The ancient wisdom of the prophet Micah 6:8 serves as both a guide and a challenge for this ongoing relay. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? This is the essence of the covenant, the heart of the divine expectation, a call to action that transcends time and culture. The work of justice is undeniably unfinished. The arc of the moral universe, while bending towards justice, does so with a slow and often agonizing grace. There are still chains to be broken, walls to be dismantled, and voices to be heard. The cries of the oppressed still rise to the heavens, demanding our attention and our action. Yet, every stone laid upon the cairn, every act of kindness extended, every unjust law challenged, every barrier to equality dismantled, each of these echoes the thunderous declaration from Sinai, "Let my people go." This primal cry for liberation continues to reverberate through history, inspiring movements for social change and reminding us that the pursuit of justice is not a utopian dream, but a divine imperative. As we witness this cairn transforming, taking on the form of our shared planet, illuminated by interconnected threads of light, we begin to glimpse the ultimate vision, a world where justice is not confined to abstract ideals or legal frameworks, but is embodied in the very fabric of our relationships and our institutions. These threads of light represent the interconnectedness of all humanity, the recognition that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. They symbolize the potential for a global network of solidarity, where the pursuit of righteousness in one corner of the world strengthens the cause of justice in another. For in the end, the commandments are not constraints designed to limit our freedom, but rather constellations in the moral universe, guiding us towards a more perfect union, a world where the divine will for harmony and wholeness is realized. They are not simply a list of do-nots, but signposts pointing us towards a do-love that is both profound and transformative. As Augustine so wisely taught, love and do what you will, not as a license for self-indulgence, but as a call to cultivate a love so deeply aligned with divine justice, so profoundly rooted in compassion and empathy, that our actions will naturally flow towards the good, towards the liberation of the oppressed, towards the healing of the broken. The ultimate hope is for a world envisioned by the prophet Isaiah 2:4. A world where the instruments of violence are transformed into tools of sustenance and peace. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This vision of shalom, of complete and harmonious peace, is the ultimate destination of the long arc of justice, the fulfillment of the revolution that began in the desert, And this revolution, this transformation of hearts and societies, finds its truest home not in grand pronouncements or political power, but in the individual commitment of each human heart to embody justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. The symphony of justice remains unfinished, but with every act of courage, every voice raised for the voiceless, every stone laid with intention, we contribute to its unfolding beauty, moving ever closer to the day when its harmonious chords resonate throughout all of creation. Final text overlay. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Micah 6:8. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the sacred roots of justice and the radical fruits they must bear in our world. If this exploration of the Ten Commandments as a call to action has stirred within you a deeper commitment to equity, dignity, and peace, we invite you to become part of a growing movement. Subscribe for ongoing reflections on faith and justice. Share this message with those who yearn for a more humane world, and let us together lay our own stones on the cairn of justice, echoing Sinai's ancient cry, "Let my people go."